Today I'd like to point out the differences between Brazil's two national disasters. The 1950 loss to Uruguay before 200,000 at the Maracanã versus this year's loss in the semifinals to Germany, the worst result ever recorded by Brazil. Brazilian author Nelson Rodrigues once said, "Everywhere has its irremediable national catastrophe, something like a Hiroshima. Our catastrophe, our Hiroshima, was the defeat to Uruguay in 1950. For starters, 1950 was a time the Brazilian people were extremely hopeful about the state of the country. The population, 51 million back then, half of whom were illiterate, was also in a love affair with the national team who had done well in the previous World Cup in 1938, finishing third and giving the world first signs of an audacious flair in our football. In the 1950 World Cup alone, Brazil obliterated the opposition. Never were we more favorites to win a title than in 1950, not even in 1970. The loss to Uruguay happened at the beginning of a decade in which Brazil was looking to assert itself as a nation with a great future. How could anything go wrong, people said. This World Cup has our name written on it. We can't lose at home," were some of the most common words said before that somber day. In order to win, Brazil needed a simple tie against Uruguay. The result, 1-1 up until the 79th minute when Gigia made it 2, silencing 200,000 and giving birth to the term Maracanazo. Following the loss, there was a tireless search for explanations of and blame for the shameful defeat. So shameful and so terrible, the national team didn't play again for 2 years and only came back to the Maracanã in 54, or 4 years after. Three scapegoats, defenders Bigode and Juvenal, and especially goalkeeper Barbosa, all claimed to lack fiber and discipline. Cowards, people said. Poor Barbosa did not deserve the fate handed to him. Life was excruciatingly cruel to the former Vasco goalie, so cruel in '94 he was banned from wishing the national team good luck in Rio before they made the trip up to the US. He died completely impoverished and alone on April 7th, 2000. This time, Brazil's already the world's 6th superpower, having a tech-savvy population second only to the US in internet users. And in the age of technology we live in, things are always more than what they appear to be. A player goes out to eat at night and has a few drinks. Minutes later, social media twists him out to be a party animal. Nowadays, restrictions and privacy are limited, and people dream far less often than before. The Brazil of back then took football lovers to the clouds. How is this possible, people wondered. Our players were seen as mysteriously superhuman, gods even. Plus, people had radio, not TV. Radio made people imagine. It beautifully exercised the mind, almost like reading a book versus watching a movie on the same subject. Nowadays, we have athletes emphasizing possession and, above all, physical prowess. However, the main difference between 1950 and 2014 is one we won't know for sure until years to come. The 1950 catastrophe forced Brazil to take a long, hard look at itself. The result, we all know, less than 20 years, three-time champions of the world. That never would have happened had it not been for 1950. Just like Germany. 4-0 loss to Brazil at the '99 Confederations Cup, bottom of their group at Euro 2000, and a year later came the final blow, that 5-1 World Cup qualifiers loss to England in Munich. Well, look at them now. What I'm saying is, yes, this year's loss was terrible, much worse than the one back in '50. However, the magnitude of the loss to Uruguay was so intense, the only way from there was up. Will Brazil follow suit and rise up again? We've done it before, we'll surely do it again.